So the team that made Mass Effect ultimately was one that we all worked together on a game called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And when we worked on that game, we had a ton of fun working with spaceships and stories that span the galaxy, and we wanted to do something like that again. We just love science fiction.
We had a few artists in mind for even getting our inspiration going and drawing from. One of those artists was Sid Mead. Some of the artists was Berkey. Doug Chang was the concept artist on Star Wars that we referenced quite a bit. Blade Runner, of course. And you just kind of start with a few kind of small things and then branch off from there.
We knew that we wanted to take this team that's really good at building science fiction RPGs and let them do that kind of thing again, but to build our own universe.
The good thing about Mass Effect is Casey and I agree on what we like for science fiction. We talk a lot about movies, and we have very similar taste. And so we actually had quite a few movies that we actually gathered scenes from, put them in folders, and we still have those now. 8 years later, we still have a lot of those movies that we went through and referenced.
If we're going to tell a story through a video game, and a video game where you can actually make choices and really change things, then what kind of universe would really support that kind of storytelling? And so we built Mass Effect from the ground up to capture some of the stuff that we love doing, having your own ship and being able to make decisions and flying around the galaxy and all that kind of stuff, meeting aliens, discovering things. And all of those things kind of became the kind of goals for what we wanted to build the Mass Effect universe into. I think what's unique about the Mass Effect universe is that it's not a fantasy version of science fiction. It literally takes real-world locations, the Earth, the Moon, places in the Milky Way, and kind of extends present day into the future through an extrapolation that you can actually believe. So there's some real science in there, some real locations. What's interesting about that is it kind of feels like maybe all of this could be real. And that's been our approach all along is, how do we extend present day into the future where it could still be a really spectacular future, but it could be real? You can almost imagine that this could happen.
Mass Effect is unique, I think, because of the cinematic quality of the game. A lot of RPGs have the depth for character customization and how you progress through the levels and build up your points and levels. But I think Mass Effect is different just because of the narrative and cinematic, the storytelling, and how we get so in deep in that aspect of the game.
When I first saw the package, I thought Mass Effect was just a simple shooting game. Oh, so American. But once I played it, the storyline was strong, and the mix of story and action was very well done. I found that mix of story and action so much fun. It felt new. I was impressed.
Holy hell! What is that thing?
When we were concepting the characters for the Mass Effect universe, sometimes we do start out with, just the basic idea of what a species is supposed to be.
It's a lot of poring over photographs or getting ideas from writing. The Krogans, for example, a lot of people thought they were actually lizards. The inspiration was lizards or turtles. But writing said it was more of like a kind of a bat race. And so when Matt Rhodes actually designed it, he was referencing more bats when he was coming up with a face. And eventually that's how we kind of came about. We just added more of a kind of a horn shape on the top, which was a bit reminiscent of a lizard. But actually the first inspiration was bats. So right now we have some early concepts for the Krogan. Trying to get them bulky, trying to get the shape of the head. Problem with these ones is they don't look alien enough. Just looks like a big guy with a funny looking head. We ended up doing something a bit more alien. Problem with this one is we can't animate that. The arms are too long, he's gonna need a different rig. So we had to pull him back a bit more. Starting to get a bit more alien with him, but again, he was gonna have some issues with animation. This guy we thought was kind of neat, but these feet were kind of odd. This is getting a lot closer now. A bit more alien. This big shell shape on the back is the iconic look of the Krogans. We just removed these side pieces. This is the final version. We gave him the dog leg. This is the big hump in the back, which we put the armor on, and that became the iconic Krogan piece.
And then we would have other characters that would be kind of like bird-like or avian, and that was the Turians.
I've always liked the Turians because that was one of the characters that was fairly difficult to design. We had numerous concept artists on them, and we eventually had to go to somebody that was on a different project at BioWare, and we said, hey, can you take a stab at this Turian? He did about 4 designs, and the 4th one he nailed it, and that was we never had to make any other changes. And I always remember seeing that final design, and I go, that's the one. I showed it to Casey, and I go, I think this is a Turian. And he goes, yeah, that's a Turian. We got it done.
Initially, in the first scripts, the Asari were just called the Beautiful People, because we wanted a different axis from, kind of weird alien, big tough alien.
What are they after?
Yeah, they seem hell-bent on catching you.
They want what I'm here for. What we're all here for.
So these are some of the early drawings for Liera. And this is Matt Rhodes' work. And what he's just trying to do is just trying to get some thumbnails down, just trying to be creative, working it out on paper. I can't really say how many drawings we did for this, probably close to 30 or 40 drawings just of her head. You can see some of the shapes in here, maybe some dots on her head. Maybe he was even trying to do some ideas with feathers, another face that's quite alien, maybe getting too far away. Maybe this is mostly tattooing. Again, we wanted to kind of keep her face very human, her eyes, nose, and mouth, but maybe want to do more with the back of her head, maybe try and see what would happen if we removed her ears, kind of gave her a different shape to the back. And we'd even talked to him maybe more about imagining what a female would look like if she came out of the water with long hair and she'd pushed her hands through her hair, that kind of shape. So we started to work with that down on this bottom one, and this ended up being the one we actually quite liked. She was alien enough in the back, but had a human face that's going to work with our digital acting system. She can have emotions, she can move her eyes, and it's nothing too crazy looking. But we like the shape of these, of the skin back here, how it kind of forms that kind of shape in the back. Everybody's quite familiar now with the Reapers. We've all seen that iconic shape coming down and landing on the planets. We had thrown around a lot of ideas. We even looked at War of the Worlds with their walkers. Maybe they were kind of creepy with thin legs and wispy kind of arms was one idea. Another idea was maybe they were more mechanical and clunky. And so we were kind of back and forth on a lot of these different ideas. And I remember I had this insect on my desk. I had gone to a trade show in New York City, and I had this giant insect from Malaysia. I think it was a leaf cutter insect. I'm not sure the exact name of it. But if you look at it and twist it around, you can actually see the shape of its back. The insect's about this big, and he became the inspiration for the Reapers and Sovereign. So that was an example of just grabbing something right off our desk and using it for inspiration to create an alien race.
The Solarians were actually supposed to be, you know, we've always seen the gray aliens that people claim to have seen in real life. But you know, what if you could actually see what they look like outside of, you know, a scary experience, and maybe they're kind of, you know, salamander type creatures.
It's a lot of different things kind of drawn from different people and movies at the time. You kind of, you know, like Thane, for example, was kind of going in a lot of different directions, and we decided to reference actually Hellboy and Abe Sapien, his look.
But once a concept artist takes that and comes up with many, many different ideas of what these things could be, we literally would do hundreds of ideas for what a Krogan would look like, or a Turian.
It had to work with the skeleton. We had some limitations for animation and gameplay, so we couldn't go too wild with the designs. Like, we can't have tentacles coming off or weird things that we have to animate too often, especially for cinematics. So we have a few of the constraints that kind of actually force you to focus your ideas a lot better.
Usually, there will be the one drawing or the one painting that an artist will do where we'll say, that's the one, that's the way it has to be.
Which one do I relate mostly to? Well, sometimes I relate to Shepard when I'm dealing with my kids, because you kind of want to grab them and go, okay, all right, do this, and you're going to do it now.
I think I mostly relate to Commander Shepard, partly because, you know, as a team, we've built a lot of ourselves into Shepard. Every time we're writing stories or reviewing parts of the game, we're just thinking about what we would do and what options we would want to have, the things that we would want to say, and the kinds of decisions that haunt us, being able to put Commander Shepard into really agonizing decisions.
Do or die isn't much of a choice, so I just keep doing whatever it takes.
So practical, but I suppose you're right.
To me, Commander Shepard, therefore, is just a really relatable character, because, in a way, you kind of fill Shepard as a vessel with your own thoughts and your own actions, but also because you're put into situations that make you wonder what you would do if that happened to you. The Mass Effect universe has a guidebook that describes how things should look, the render and the photographic quality and the way lens flares should look and the way people talk and the way things move and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of guidelines that we use, and it's mostly just to make sure that things feel like they're from the Mass Effect universe.
It was a clean style, things had purpose. On the characters, we like to build these arches across the chest. The vehicles have a certain look, they're slick designs, they're not too clunky. As long as they followed those ideas, we were fine.
And then in terms of story, our approach is to kind of figure out a basic premise that we're all happy with, and then let people work within that framework and kind of do whatever they want with it.
With the different races and the amount of stuff in Mass Effect, you can go in a lot of different directions. We don't want to keep anybody too tightly bound in it, or you don't get creative ideas back. You kind of want to let people have their chance to say, hey, let's do something a bit different. Is this work within the franchise? And we say, yeah, and it's something new and fresh to the audience, or otherwise they're just going to see the same stuff over and over again. So you want that freedom, but you definitely want it to fit within the franchise, and it's a balancing act.
In the meantime, let's go take care of whatever that thing dropped off. Coming, Garrus?
Are you kidding? I'm right behind you.
Well, we had an opportunity to work with Funimation on doing an animated movie in the Mass Effect universe. And when we first started thinking about this, we were kind of in the early stages of working on Mass Effect 3. With Mass Effect 1, one of the things that people loved about Mass Effect 1 was that there was a discovery of these characters. You got to meet people and go to new places. So we introduced new characters for Mass Effect 2, and we're doing the same thing for 3. So one of them was a really interesting character for us, and that's James Vega.
I remember Vega, the descriptions, he was a bulkier guy. He was like a big linebacker, but a lovable guy, but you know, a bit rough around the edges, almost like a Sawyer from Lost. You might not agree with him, but you can't hate him for that either.
We were reading stories about soldiers in Afghanistan. Some of these guys who are very well educated, they're officers, they're acting as soldiers and diplomats, they have very difficult jobs. And there were aspects of those real life people that we wanted to bring into the Mass Effect universe, just to remind ourselves that there is real emotion, there's real authenticity that we wanted to bring to these characters.
At the time, I thought I was making the right decision. Now, I just don't know.
We knew that we would be building him into Mass Effect 3, but that he also had a really great backstory, and there was a reason why he's a seasoned veteran.
You gotta be ready for anything. But like Commander Shepard always said, nothing is ever simple.
Mass Effect Paragon Lost will appeal to the fan base because they're passionate fans and they want to know as much as they can about the franchise.
I think what's really cool about Paragon Lost is that you get to see the Mass Effect universe kind of rendered in a different way. It's different from comics, it's different from the video games. It's a different view on this universe.
It's crazy, but it could work.
We're gonna have to make it work or we all die.
It was a lot of fun working with Henry Gilroy, the screenwriter, on a project again. When we worked on the Clone Wars together, that was fun too, but this time, the speed and sheer amount of the ideas were stunning. There was so much story, it was a challenge to fit everything into the film. Also, the theme was so well established. I myself was totally taken in.
And it's also a story that's, you know, something that really needs to be told, I think, which is, you know, when we looked at the overall timeline for the Mass Effect universe, there was 2 years where Commander Shepard was out of action and human colonies were being captured. So we wanted to kind of show what that was like, because that's an important period, and it is kind of a big gap in the overall story of the trilogy. You hear about Vega's stories in Mass Effect 3 and what he went through in that period. And so we kind of know a little bit about what this story is, and we know a lot of what was supposed to have happened in this period. So Paragon Lost is really, for a Mass Effect fan, it's an opportunity to actually see what happened in that period where Shepard was gone and Vega was trying to hold off the Collectors.
Mass Effect, we try and make it look as realistic as possible. We're talking about texture of the skin and how we're going to do hair and how the materials are working on the armor, shaders and polys and cinematic lighting. And it's nice to kind of step back and see somebody doing, hey, this is a stylized version of that. This is what we think the characters will look like, kind of a more artistic look to it. Breaking it down a bit more to the bare essentials, like what are the iconic looks of these characters, like the Asari and the Grunt. The Krogans and so on. It was great for us to see somebody take a different interpretation of it.
At first, I thought animating in a CG style would be more suitable than a 2D anime, because the quality of the graphics in the game are so high. It seemed CG would be a more natural match. But when I started production, human noise and emotions in the hand-drawn action contributed to the storytelling. The way the bodies twist and deform when they're drawn by hand adds a certain energy. It added more than I anticipated. It was attractive to me. I found the anime style was a great choice.
As soon as we started to see some of the line art coming back, we started to be able to visualize where things were going, and we could see these characters were going to be really interesting looking characters.
We would send them our work, which they would do their interpretation. So we got a lot of back and forth. First, we would start with the line art. It was nice to see how they would kind of do the rough sketches. They would do a lot of profile shots, side, top, really trying to understand the ideas. Then they really break down styles, get it a lot cleaner. It was nice to see the characters too. That was always fun to see what James was going to look like, how they took his look, what the Asari were going to look like, and then back and forth to the colors. If the Japanese have influenced Mass Effect before, we've looked at Appleseed, Final Fantasy the movie to kind of get some designs. So it's nice to see them take what we've taken from them and do their turn on it.
The first stage in making an anime is called pre-production. This is when the project leaders create all the initial designs, which the rest of the team will use as a guide. This includes character design, as you can see here with Vega. We'll draw the character from many angles, and with a variety of facial expressions to help flesh them out. If the character wears multiple outfits, then each of those will be designed at this point too. We also create comparison sheets to show the relative size of all the characters. All the different creatures have to be designed as well, along with characters' weapons and any other accessories that will be featured in the film. Once these designs are done, I'll move on to the storyboards. This is like a visual script, showing the key moments in every scene. You can see these numbers here. These tell the duration of each scene, so we'll know when each moment happens and understand the pacing of the film. And in this column here, you can include special notes and instructions for the animators. While I'm working on the storyboards, the art department is designing all the backgrounds. These are called the art boards, and unlike the storyboards, they're created in full color. This way we can start developing the color palettes that will be used in each scene and help create the look for the film. When the art boards are finished, the color for the characters will be chosen. The characters will have different colors in each scene to match the background colors and lighting. And in another department, the 3D objects are being designed, such as the ships and certain architecture. Once all these things are finished, pre-production is complete, and we can begin production with the full animation team. We'll give these materials, the designs, storyboards, and artboards to everyone as a roadmap through production. And that's how Paragon Lost was made.
When Mass Effect is at its best, I think it combines things like action and romance and a little bit of humor. And that's one of the great things about Paragon Lost and Vega's crew in particular, is that there's a really great kind of comedic banter between them that kind of keeps things fun. There is a lot of really intense action, and there's some pretty heavy emotion in this as well. But probably one of the best things about it is that the humor's always there.
Well, so much for looking cool before I die.
There, on the ridge!
Idiot.
While there are many characters in this story, the character I find most interesting is Milk. I enjoyed working on him. While other characters are outgoing and positive, Milk is somewhat pessimistic, which makes an interesting contrast. It was fun to have him interact with the other characters.
Just be there.
Sure, guys. But if I actually pull this off, this time free drinks for life are not even gonna cover it.
But I also really just enjoy little things like seeing the Mako driving across, some distant planet, and they're going somewhere. You get to, and there again, you get to see things that you can't see in the game. We don't ever really go inside the Mako, but here you're actually seeing characters inside as they're driving somewhere, and it's just really fun to see for a Mass Effect fan.
They were able to create some new ships. We did a Krogan ship, just a rough sketch for them, and they took it to the next level, designed it, detailed it up, and made it look fantastic.
There's some really epic scenes in Paragon Lost where we've talked about the idea of these colonies being captured, but you actually get to see some of the stuff that happens in these colonies, and James and his crew are really fighting to keep these humans alive, and the scale really starts to get quite epic, and you're starting to see collectors and these giant ships. So it's pretty exciting for us to see what that stuff might have looked like.
The ship that the collectors had done, that was a very challenging area for us in the game. We weren't really sure what it was, and it was nice to see their interpretation of what the collectors were. It was this giant ship made out of mud and steel, and I think that was one of the most challenging things we had to do in the game, and it was interesting to see how they met the same challenge.
My favorite scenes? This may not be the answer you want to hear, but my favorite scenes are the ones with the little girl April. I have a daughter her age and I'm raising her, so I liked working on April's scenes the best. In the story, we see her developing her own personality and identity, and I really love witnessing my own daughter grow up. So I related to April's growth while I was drawing those scenes.
So far, we've been working on the Mass Effect universe for over 8 years. When we started out, it was just a single video game. And now we're looking back on something that has become a trilogy, but it's also become a universe that so many fans around the world know about. They love these characters, they want to see more of them, and now we have an animated film. And it's been amazing for us to take something that started out as just things that are figments of our imagination, and to be able to see these characters coming to life through other people's work. It's been really exciting for us.
In Japan, anime movies in the fantasy genre have a long history of being popular. But science fiction anime has had a limit because sci-fi novels aren't as popular here as they are in America. However, as Star Trek and American dramas are becoming popular here, Japanese taste may be changing. So I have a lot of anticipation about this Mass Effect anime and seeing how it's received in Japan. I'm looking forward to seeing the reaction.
I hope the hardcore fans love it. I hope our regular fans love it. But I also want more people to kind of get involved, people who haven't played the game or don't know as much about it. And I hope people love this and enjoy it and realize, hey, let's do some more of this. Let's tell some other stories. You know, you just saw a sliver of the Mass Effect franchise with Shepard's Path and how he versus the Reapers, but what are the stories from all these other characters and the Turian backgrounds, or Thane and the Krogans, Solarians, and how we branch that out even more?
Well, we always have plans for future things that we want to do in the Mass Effect universe. We have some downloadable content that's coming out for the games. We've got some other things happening in terms of comics that are coming out and things like that. And even for the games themselves, we're always working on something new.
It's not just a game, it's an amazing world that has a lot of depth in the writing and the art, and it's got a lot of potential in the future too.
We see this as an ongoing story. The Mass Effect universe has become something huge. It's kind of bigger than us. It's bigger than any single project. I see these things as different windows into a fiction that we see as real, and we want to create a lot of little windows into what this overall story is.